everyone, welcome to Main Street Gardener. Today I wanted to review with you my top 4 garden updates or garden changes from last year. I've been taking some time to reflect on what worked really well in the garden last year and what am I really proud of the changes that I made. So my garden is only 3 years old. When we purchased our home, the backyard was a complete blank slate. If you want to learn more, I have some other videos about our progress to restore this beautiful space. So today I want to just tell you about 4 changes that I decided to make during 2024, and I'm really pleased with them and I'm excited to share them with you. So let's jump in and get started. The first one was a big transformation to our garden shed. So when we purchased our home, we immediately knew we needed a storage shed. While we had a basement, it was at, of course, the house, and our property is very long. So we knew instantly we didn't have a garage, we needed a garden shed. And so we picked out the one we thought looked the best. It was kind of a quick decision. We created a little gravel path to it, but it worked great as just a storage garden shed. But after a couple of years of living in the space, I realized I really needed a space to bring in my cut flowers, to process them, to make floral arrangements, to just putter around, to store all my containers, and just really kind of a floral studio or floral shed. So my husband agreed, and we ended up purchasing a second small storage unit for behind to put all of the landscape stuff, the lawnmower, the trimmer, the blower, all those things. We don't have a lot of those types of tools, so it worked out okay. Then we began the transition to creating this blank slate into my floral studio. So the first thing we had to do was put up shiplap. We used shiplap wood slats all along the inside. We did insulate it. And then my husband laid a commercial grade hardwood floor that's not hardwood. It's the fake hardwood floor that just allows for spills, messes, cleanup, but it looks really pretty. We had some antique doors, old doors in our basement, and so we used those in the back, and out of some wood from the property, we were able to create the workbench. Now we already had the workbench built, and so I decided to keep it, and we just went ahead and worked around it. So not only did we transform the inside, but the outside began a transformation. We replaced the barn doors with some paneled glass doors to bring in more light to the space. We also added some windows, and then the front pathway we also decided to modify. So we added some stepping stones. I did some extra landscaping. My husband built a porch off the front so that I could put a chair, some plants. But then as the year went on, the final phase was we actually added grass. And you may be thinking, oh no, not more grass. We don't have a lot of grass. And I think out here in the shade garden, we really needed something to kind of ground. Everything else is mulch or gravel. So we added grass. I hope that it takes this spring. We put it in late in the fall, and it's put around the stepping stones. So I'm just really thrilled with my little shed. It houses all of the little fun things that I use for my photography business on the side, as well as creating arrangements and the workshops that I hold. All right, let's move on to number 2. So number 2 was a pretty easy decision to make. We have an original summer kitchen that is connected to our house by a breezeway. It was original to the property. It probably dates back to about 1870s, 1880s. Our property was originally an orchard, and they think that this was one of the buildings they used to store things in, kind of like a root cellar, and maybe even cook in. So we have this long gutter that faces our property as you walk into it. So as you walk to the back of our house, which is our main entrance, you see the back of this and this trim. So I had this idea of somehow putting flowers up there. So I had some really narrow, just plastic containers from the garden center, and they were just laying around. I had used them for seed starting or something. So I got my husband to fasten them on the gutter and got them planted. And I used extremely sun tolerant, extremely hardy annuals. So a lot of super tunias and Bidens and other things that I knew would last through the growing season. And as you can see, it turned out beautiful. The flowers ended up just draping over the entire front. I did give them a haircut midway through, but I was really pleased with this and will absolutely do it again. My goal will be to extend it the entire length. The plants were even growing up the roof, which was fine. And it just turned out really beautiful and was super fun. So that was my number 2 of love it and we'll do it again. All right, let's jump to number 3. So number 3 is part of our garden. So our garden is set up in our main garden bed, really has 4 quadrants. We have 2 where we have our crabapple tree, and then we have 2 that are towards the driveway. Those were originally designed as cut garden spaces. And as you'll see in these images, I grew dahlias, and I grew a lot of dahlias. But as I got used to this space and the garden, the raised beds, they worked okay, but actually I was finding, due to our soil quality, that the dahlias were growing better in my flower beds that had really been enriched versus the container beds. I also just didn't like the look of it. It was really messy. It's a really narrow space. And so in the fall of 2023, when I took out the dahlias, I decided to make as you're walking down our house, the left side, to make it a flower bed. And it was a big decision, but I knew in my heart that it was the right thing to do. And so as you'll see from these images, I then began planting. And I did plant some things in the winter. I planted some sweet spire shrubs, some roses that I had gotten, some hydrangeas, and just hoped that I could winter them over. We're zone 7B. And then in the spring, I planted some additional shrubs. I mainly wanted this space to be filled with shrubs, perennials that would just take over and grow. I also divided some elephant's ear, and as you can see, it has done phenomenal. So throughout this space, I really, really loved this garden bed. I did add some sunshine ligustrum in the spring for a pop of yellow. I wanted to make sure I had all the colors in the garden and that it would also give me 4 seasons of interest. So that was number 3, a brand new garden bed, and I just couldn't be happier with how it turned out. All right, and so last up for my 2024 garden updates is going to have to be my shade garden. So we started this garden when we first moved into our property. I was itching to start planting. And so in March of 2022, we started working on this space. And we created the path, added a few plants, mulched it, and just began the process of building this bed. Because we were so focused on our primary garden space, it has taken 3 years to really cultivate this shade garden. But I really feel good with where we landed at the end of this year. So the first thing we did is in the summer, my husband and his mother and father came to visit, and they love to help do handy projects. And they helped build and create this twig arch that leads you into the shade garden. I just love it. I wanted a trellis and had the idea, why not make it natural? Since this space is different from the English garden, it is really a natural shade garden. So they built this beautiful trellis for us. Then as we entered this space, I just continued to add plants to it. We also put up some iron hooks on the fence, and I hung some of my planters that I already had and filled them with ferns and other shade-loving plants, coleus and some other things that just did beautiful throughout the summer months. As the summer went on, I decided that this space, it just needed a little something else. And so I think the final decision was actually to put gravel in the pathways. It just gave us a beautiful separation between the mulch in the beds and the pathway and really distinguished it. We also added edging to make it really stand out, the beautiful curve to the back of the space. The last thing we did is we added a beautiful handmade wood table that's been sealed for outdoors. It's like a picnic table, but it's very large, and you can probably sit about 6 people, maybe two more on the ends. I wanted this space for my floral workshops, for when I'm working on projects, because it's so close to my floral studio. And I love it. I've already used it, and I can't wait to host some ladies' lunches or family get-togethers, especially starting this spring. So that was number 4, my last big project of the year. I'm really thrilled with it. My shade garden is not finished though. I planted tons more daffodils this fall, and I will continue to add shade plants. I've kind of learned what's working, what's not, and I'll continue to grow and develop this garden space. I can't wait to share it with you this spring. And thank you so much for watching today. I hope you'll take a minute to click like or subscribe. Leave me a comment. I'd love to know what your top 1 achievement was in your garden this past year, what really spoke to you about your garden space. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks so much for watching.